Hey, so WWDC just happened, and after watching the live stream and starting to download some beta software to try to test iOS 13 and the new Mac OS and all of that, I have some thoughts about the new things that were announced at WWDC. So I made a little top 5 things that I enjoyed about WWDC. Not really in a ranked order, just 5 things I think you should know about what Apple announced today in Cupertino, San Francisco, whatever WWDC was. Now let's start with tvOS. Now Apple is really trying to push the new TV app, but the thing they announced that interested me the most was the new DualShock 4 and Xbox One controller support natively to the Apple TV and in tvOS. Now, I don't have an Apple TV, but I'm kind of hoping this support trickles down to iOS and maybe we'll get native DualShock 4 controller support on iOS. I don't know, fingers crossed for that. The second thing on my list is watchOS 6. They talked about improving the app downloading experience on the Apple Watch by bringing the App Store natively into the watch, which should remove an extra barrier to install apps on the watch. Maybe it will work as a good incentive for developers to create more apps for the watch. They also talked about a native calculator app and a native voice memos app that syncs with the phone and back. A quick way to calculate tips and split a bill between friends on a restaurant. That can come in handy if you don't have your phone very accessible, or if doing this would be more discreet than picking the phone from the pocket. So there's that. They also talked about a new activity statistics app that will integrate with iOS 13 and a new health app which will calculate trends and tell you how good you're doing in this time compared to the previous year, which looks interesting to me. The Apple Watch captures a lot of data and sometimes you don't have a very good way to read that data. So having better graphs and more granular information is an improvement for everyone. Now, the third thing on my list is iOS 13. Now, I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed with how little the UI changed overall on the iOS 13. The big thing is really dark mode. I'm a sucker for dark mode. I really enjoy it. And hopefully having it natively in the OS will bring more apps to update themselves and bring dark mode versions of all those apps into iOS. But day-to-day usage of the phone shouldn't change that much from how it usually looks. They talk about speed improvements as well, 30% faster Face ID, 2 times app opening speed, which will be a direct consequence of 50% smaller apps and 60% smaller app updates. So all of that should bring the phone to an even faster place, which is always a good thing. They also show the new Carplay app, which I'll try to check out soon when I install the beta and try it in the car. It looks like they improved the screen real estate space arrangement, which is a big thing in cars, and having all the information you need at a glance. They also integrated swipe into the native keyboard, and they also improved the Photos app with more granular editing to pictures, and they also brought some tweaking to video, like rotating a video and adding colors and improvements like you usually do in pictures, but in video, which makes sense for maybe a quick share if you want to just slap on a filter on the video. And finally, they made Siri sound better. She probably isn't any cleverer, but she'll sound more natural, which is ironic because previously Siri was actually the voice of a woman saying a lot of different small words and then Siri bringing them together to sound natural. And the new Siri is what they call neural text to speech, which is basically, it's just software and it sounds more human. Creepy stuff. Now, the fourth thing on my list is iPadOS. Now, last year when people reviewed the iPad, most of them came to the same conclusion: great hardware being slightly held back by what iOS can do. And this year, Apple seems to be going face first into a new operating system that mostly looks like a branch from iOS, but with enhanced multitasking abilities. Being able to run multiple instances of the same app, and like they showcased, multiple Word documents, multiple notes at the same time, increasing how fast you can switch between open apps. It paves the way forward to the iPad being a complete replacement for the laptop for a lot of people. Let's see how they execute it and how good the Files app gets. They talked about USB thumb drive support and also desktop quality browsing without constantly having to ask for the desktop version of the website, and some websites not being able to provide that, so you pretty much just get a scaled up version of the iPhone website. Now, number 5 on my list, and the final one, is the updated Mac Pro. Now, I have a lot of thoughts about the Mac Pro. First of all, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be really expensive. Then I cannot look away from the 256 gig SSD starting model, which I find pretty hilarious since it's a pro computer. I mean, if you're going to edit video, it's going to be rough. If you're going to edit pictures, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough either way with 256 of internal SSD. Just looking at a computer, it has some upgradability. The CPU looks socketed, so maybe Apple will offer upgrades in the future. The motherboard does not look any standard at all. It's completely custom. The PCI Express slots look normal-ish, so you're probably going to be able to install normal GPUs in them. Apple showed the entry model having a Xeon 8 core and the Radeon 580X, which isn't very pro in my eyes. It has 32 gigs of RAM and 256 SSD. That's the entry model for $6,000. Shipping later this fall. You can get configurations all the way up to a 28 core Xeon, which is probably just a Xeon Platinum that's been available for a little while. It probably isn't going to turbo to 4.4 gigahertz all cores. It's probably going to be closer to the base clock values of 2.4 or 2.5, up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM if you have so much money and you do not know where to put it. But most of the presentation, they focused about the MPX card, which will be a custom PCI Express card that pretty much has double the size of a normal PCI Express slot. And they talked about the new GPUs that they're going to be able to custom make for it, like the Radeon Vega 2 and Vega 2 Dual, which is just a dual GPU version of the Vega 2. Now, the Vega 2 looks like a beefed up Radeon 7 with a little bit more GPU power and a lot more HBM with 32 gigabytes of HBM memory per card. And you're going to be able to put 2 GPUs in one card, and you're going to be able to put 2 of those cards. So 4 GPUs, 128 gigabytes of HBM2 memory, and it's going to cost a fortune. I mean, I will not expect the dual GPU cards to cost less than $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 each. And the top configuration Mac Pro will cost more than 20 grand, 30 grand easily, with the 28 cores and the dual GPUs. And if you put just a bunch of RAM, a 2 or 4 terabyte SSD on it, and it's going to be very expensive and very, very unattainable for a lot of people. But MKBHD will get it, and we'll probably get a banging, good looking review of it, so I can't complain. Now, to go along with the screen, they showcased a new Pro display that they called XDR because it's more than HDR, which was interesting. It looks like a great display, 6K, 32 inches, an incredible back array of LEDs that's going to get very high contrast ratios. The bezels look really slim. They talked about 2 variants, one with a glossy screen and one with a nano texture that is supposed to be as anti-reflective as a matte display without some of the cons of having a matte screen. But the funniest thing I saw with the screen was the entry price for the glossy model is $5,000. The price for the nano texture one will be $6,000, but neither of those come with a stand or a VESA mount adapter. If you want to use the VESA mount, you're going to have to buy the adapter, which is $200, which is on the upper end of adapters, but the stand is $1,000. A stand is $1,000. I mean, What a world we live in, huh? So that's been it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of my face and technology, just subscribe down below, and yeah, bye.